Welcome to EchoTales Audio, where stories whisper through time and wonder lives in every word. Let the tale unfold and your imagination awaken. From a very early age, my deepest fascination was with microscopic investigation. When I was only 10, a distant relative crafted a rudimentary microscope for me. Nothing more than a drilled copper disc and a droplet of water held in place by capillary force. It magnified no more than 50 times, but it opened a world that left me breathless with wonder. From that moment I was obsessed. I scoured drawers and cabinets for anything that resembled a lens. I even dismantled old spectacles and harvested the eyes of fish, hoping to construct something magical. None of them worked, but the dream of discovering a perfect lens never left me. Then came a real microscope, gifted to me by a cousin. It was a simple Fields model, accompanied by an educational booklet. The day it arrived, the world as I knew it changed. Through the lens, the mundane transformed into marvels. Water droplets became jungles. Fibers turned into landscapes. I had discovered a secret universe. While others around me pursued the usual pleasures of youth, I withdrew into a world of light and glass. I spent hours lost in the patterns of mold, the symmetry of crystals, and the dances of invisible life. When the time came to choose a profession, my family encouraged medicine. I agreed, not out of a desire to heal, but for the access it would give me to laboratories and scientific instruments. I moved to New York and equipped my apartment with a top-of-the-line microscope and an array of attachments: draw tubes, camera lucida, polarizing filters, and more. But in truth, I didn't yet know how to use them. For months, my tools sat idle. I had all the instruments but lacked the knowledge. It was a lonely time. But slowly, driven by relentless desire, I began to teach myself. I practiced, failed, and practiced again. Eventually, the unknown became familiar. My hands grew steady. My eyes trained to see what others could not. And yet, I was not satisfied. My microscope could only take me so far. I dreamed of something more, an instrument beyond anything ever built. A perfect lens, unbound by the limits of man-made glass. I believed it could be done, so I began to experiment. I tried every material I could afford: quartz, crystal, even melted fragments of precious stones. I studied the refractive indexes of gems. I burned through savings and patience. Each failure chipped away at me. Then, just when my hopes were dimming, an unusual opportunity appeared. One evening, my eccentric neighbor, Jules Simon, an artist with spiritual leanings, visited me in great excitement. He spoke of a woman named Madame Vulpes, a medium who, he claimed, could communicate with the spirit world. Skeptical but desperate, I agreed to meet her. In a quiet, dimly lit parlor, I sat with Madame Vulpes. She placed my hands on a table and instructed me to clear my mind. Moments passed. Then came faint rapping sounds. My questions were answered, not in speech but in a strange code of knocks, spelling out words I never uttered aloud. One message stopped my breath. A diamond of 140 carats, submitted to electromagnetic currents, pierced axially and ground with precision, will become the universal lens. The clarity of the answer, so precise, so unprompted, shook me. Was it truly the voice of a spirit? Or had my own obsession somehow projected the answer into the seance? I didn't know. And I didn't care. The message was all I needed. A diamond. A pure, flawless diamond. The lens I dreamed of might be possible. But such a gem was beyond my means. Ordinary methods would not get me what I needed. And I had already decided, nothing would stand in my way. The message from the seance haunted me. A diamond of 140 carats. It was a vision far beyond my financial reach. Even the thought of such a gem felt impossible. Yet I couldn't shake it. I couldn't ignore the precision of that message. Clearer than any spirit communication should have been. Whether it came from the beyond or from within my own desperate mind, it was now my truth. The problem was simple. How could I obtain such a diamond? I began frequenting jewelers, pretending to be a buyer. I asked subtle questions, studied stones under false pretenses, learned the habits of the trade. Most dealers laughed at my inquiries. A diamond of that size? Rare. Astronomically expensive. One might appear at an estate sale or in a secret deal, but such moments were fleeting. Then one morning, while walking past a grimy shop in the Bowery, I saw a strange figure standing just inside. A tall, lean man with sunken eyes, wild black hair, and a threadbare coat. Something about him made me stop. His name, he told me, was Linley. He dealt in unusual items, relics, scientific instruments, and occasionally rare stones. I visited him regularly. We talked about optics, gems, and the history of lenses. His knowledge was impressive, but his shop was chaotic, like a museum abandoned in haste. One evening, after we had spoken for hours, he leaned in close and whispered, "I've seen what you seek." My heart nearly stopped. "A diamond?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Not just a diamond. The diamond. A raw stone. Enormous. Buried in a private estate collection. The owner's dying. No family. When he's gone, the sale will be discreet but fast." I could hardly believe it. "How much?" I whispered. $30,000. An impossible sum. I left the shop in a daze, my mind spinning with desperation. I had no family wealth. No savings. My medical studies had been long abandoned in favor of my obsession. I was a man with a microscope and a dream, not a fortune. But the idea wouldn't die. Weeks passed. I sold everything I owned except the microscope and its accessories. I moved into a bare room and lived off bread and tea. Still, I was far from 30,000. Then came a newspaper notice. The estate of William Ptolemy, recently deceased, was offering private bids on rare stones and exotic curiosities. It was the diamond. I knew it. I pawned my microscope to secure a small advance, and with the rest of my funds, I placed a desperate bid. An insulting one, by market standards, but the best I could do. To my astonishment, it was accepted. The gem arrived in a velvet-lined box. It was raw, uncut, faintly yellow, and full of strange, natural fractures. But it was real. Heavy. Beautiful. Pulsing with possibility. Now came the most dangerous part, transforming it into the lens. I had no room for error. A single wrong cut, and the entire stone could shatter or become useless for optics. I studied gem-cutting manuals, practiced on quartz, and finally, with trembling hands and a heart racing like a storm, I began. I drilled an axial channel with a custom diamond point drill. I exposed the stone to an electromagnetic current for hours at a time. I polished each curve, each angle, until it gleamed like starlight. Weeks passed, and then it was done. A flawless, transparent diamond lens, unlike anything the world had ever seen. I fitted it to my microscope. My hands shook. My breath caught. I turned the focus wheel, and the world I thought I knew vanished. I sat in the dim glow of my laboratory, the diamond lens now in place. The microscope stood like an altar before me, silent, waiting. I adjusted the lighting. My hands moved on instinct, familiar with every screw, every slide. I prepared a fresh specimen of purified water, sealing it carefully beneath the slip of glass. And then, I looked. At first, nothing. The usual shifting blur, the dance of tiny bubbles. But I fine-tuned the focus, gently, slowly, until the world beneath the lens unfolded. Not the chaotic scurry of common infusoria. Not paramecia or amoebas, but a crystalline landscape. A hidden city of symmetry and light. Arches of delicate structure, towers formed of translucent fibers, like coral reefs of impossible elegance. And within it, movement. A figure. Not an organism. Not a speck. A being. She was beautiful. No larger than a pin's head, but shaped like a human. Ethereal. Draped in what looked like flowing robes made of mist and light. She moved with purpose, graceful and calm, navigating the delicate structures with ease. My heart stopped. She turned, looked up, as if sensing me. I staggered back from the lens. This couldn't be. Not possible. But I returned, breathless, my eye pressed again to the eyepiece. She was still there. The buildings were real. The movement deliberate. It was no trick of light or floating debris. It was another world. A world within a drop of water. For days I observed her, her realm, a microscopic paradise untouched by time. I saw others like her, smaller figures, plants that swayed without air, rivers that sparkled with bioluminescence. But she was the center. The queen. I began to feel as though I knew her. Her habits. Her routine. I even imagined her feelings, solitude, curiosity, perhaps even wonder, mirroring mine. I stopped leaving my apartment. I hardly ate. My journal filled with pages of observations, descriptions of her dwelling, her gestures, the rhythm of her miniature life. She danced sometimes, spinning through her crystalline halls with a joy that made my chest ache. I no longer saw her as a microbe. I called her Animula. And I loved her. Yes, loved her. Not as a scientist or dreamer, but with the desperate, helpless affection of a man who had glimpsed something divine. My microscope was no longer an instrument. It was a portal. But then, one day, she didn't appear. I searched the slide for hours. But Animula was gone. The crystalline halls lay silent, their soft lights dimmed. The delicate towers and spiraled gardens were there, but empty, lifeless. It felt as though the very soul of the microcosm had vanished. Panic gripped me. Had I overexposed the slide to heat or light? Had I shifted the cover glass, crushed her by accident? No. Everything was intact. I prepared another specimen from the same source, same water, same process. Nothing. I tried again. Again, nothing. The microcosmic world would no longer reveal itself. It was as though the lens had turned its face away from me, or that the world I had seen, her world, had somehow collapsed. I could not sleep. I did not eat. Night after night, I remained hunched over the microscope, shifting slides, adjusting light, whispering her name into the silent room like a man praying into a grave. Animula, come back. But she never did. I began to question my own sanity. Had she ever been there at all? Was she a product of exhaustion? A dream conjured by a mind too desperate, too alone? But no. I knew what I had seen, and I had seen beauty beyond any earthly form. My notes were real. Hundreds of pages filled with details no imagination could conjure. I had lived beside her, watched her move, breathe, dance. Animula had been real, and now she was gone. As the silence grew heavier, so did the weight of my obsession. I could not return to the ordinary world, not after what I had glimpsed. The streets, the people, the sky itself, they all seemed dull and hollow. My heart belonged to a vanished spirit who had lived in a drop of water, a being I had loved, and lost, forever. Thanks for listening to EchoTales Audio, where stories echo through silence, and the unseen is never far. For more tales, subscribe to our channel.